Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to day one of launch week. And today we are going to present a very interesting feature, a feature which has been in demand from a lot of customers and users. And finally, we are able to release it thanks to Shrikant and Amlan from our engineering team. And to just give you context on how we went about this. So we built out the infra monitoring module ground up, making it OpenTelemetry native. So compared to other products which were built with assuming that there's a agent and then they are sort of trying to backpatch OpenTelemetry on it now, this product which you have designed is built ground up for OpenTelemetry and would provide much better experience for folks who are interested in OpenTelemetry. We'll chat more about different things which we encountered in this and how we went about it. But first, I would love to welcome Shrikant and Amlan. Thanks, guys, for building this feature and working on it. I think we have already seen quite a good response from the community and our customers on this feature. So congrats on that. And yeah, maybe Shrikant would love to hear a quick overview on like what prompted this, why did you build this, and maybe see a quick demo what it looks like.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the infrastructure, like every application that you run must go on some resource that runs it, and not having the visibility into the underlying resources means you are blind to what's happening, and it's really important for you to have a visibility into the infrastructure resources that your main applications are running on. This is the most common thing that you expect. Like it is your monitoring and your observability is incomplete without the infrastructure monitoring. So this is something that people has been asking us, and we wanted to build. We decided to build it on top of the OpenTelemetry. So everything that we do is entirely dependent on the what OpenTelemetry follows, so that you don't have to run multiple agents on your infrastructure to just get into the visibility. And the among other the reasons that we got why people want to look into infrastructure monitoring is that there are a number of reasons. So like in many cases, the resource contention is usually the reason for a service disruption or the high latency that users are observing. And like you don't want to be in that situation. You want to be proactive, and then before even you run into this resource contention, you want to get alerted and then go ahead and look into it. And the use cases are like far more than what different users have different use cases. And some people, for example, let's say, even though they don't have any like problems, they may be over provisioning it. Like how do they get to know that what is the actual utilization, what is the patterns over the period of time, when do they need to scale down, when do they need to scale up, and like how much, like even if they want to scale up, how much do they need it, can they do this via automatic provisioning. And then if they are over provisioning, let's just say they don't, like there may be some users who have a fixed resources that they don't need to scale up, scale down, but they still want to get into visibility. Okay, hey, am I underutilizing it, or do I need to am I over provisioning it and reduce my cost by looking at what is the current usage? That's another aspect of how infrastructure monitoring people use it. So other thing is that like what there is again the network aspect of it, where say you want to see how the security, there's a security aspect to it as well, where you monitor your network infrastructure, and then see if there is any make sure that you are monitoring it, and the compliance, you want to enforce the compliance restrict security policies to it. And then again the correlation story, where okay, hey, I have my application running and then I'm suddenly seeing the high latency. Does it correlate with the underlying infrastructure monitoring, how it is behaving? So the use cases are more like there are vast number of use cases.
Got it. Yeah. I think we've discussed a lot of the use cases, but would love to see how the feature actually looks like and what does it have.
Yeah, let Amlan take over and start it with the C8 in action.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Shrikant. So for now, I'll just give you a brief overview of how infrastructure monitoring looks on the SigNoz front end. So in the side nav, if you go from the home page, in the side nav, you will see that we have a separate section for the infra monitoring feature. If we click onto it, we will come on the main page, where we have two tabs. One is the host and the other is the Kubernetes. In the host tab, you can see that we have all the hosts that are available for you listed down here. And for each host, you can see various metrics here, such as its status, its use, and other parameters available. You can choose to filter them here. You can apply your custom filters. And similarly, if we move on to the Kubernetes tab, you can see that we have a bunch of Kubernetes entities listed here, such as pods, nodes, namespaces, clusters, deployments, jobs, daemon sets, stateful sets, and volumes. And once you click on each of these entities, a separate listing view opens up for it. For example, now we have the pods listing page open, where you can see all the pods that are available for you to monitor. And for each pod, we have various metrics here listed down, such as the CPU request usage, the limit usage, among others. So this was a brief overview of how the infrastructure monitoring project looks from the UI. And we are going to dive into what each of these parameters actually means and how you can actually utilize them for your benefit. And Shrikant will guide you onto that, what each of these parameter means and how you are going to work with it. So Shrikant, handing it back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Amlan. Cool. Yeah. So let me dive into the more details of it. So the host section here, you can see the listing page. This shows you the active status. This essentially means that this host is reporting. Like it's reporting the data. It's very informative. Because you may have the inactive host. When the active host is inactive, it could indicate there's a problem with it, and you want to go troubleshoot why that is the case. And here in the listing page, you can see CPU usage, memory usage, and you can actually click on it and then see the detailed metrics over over a window of time. This detail view shows you the complete, very granular detail. Here you can see the not just the CPU usage. Here you can see the CPU usage by state, like how much of it was idle, user CPU time, system CPU time, etc. And then even memory usage. Here you can see how much of it is cache memory, how much can be claimed, how much is actually used, how much is free memory. So this details tab gives you the very granular information about every system performance metrics that's reported by the host metrics receiver. And so the one particular aspect to talk about here is that everything that you see here, like every detail that you see here, is coming from the OpenTelemetry. And the one thing I want to talk about here is that whatever you see here how do we know that a certain thing is a host? How do I know that this ZK management P1 generator is a host? Where do I get that data? So this data, it comes from the OpenTelemetry semantic conventions. So there is an attribute called host.name, which is represented, which is used to represent, hey, this attribute, any value that it contains, represents a host. So that is how we enable, that is what enables us to say that, okay, how do I identify a host? The benefit of building it from ground up from OpenTelemetry is that without ambiguity, you can provide that this is how you identify the host. When you compare this with the other vendors who are there in the observability space, they have their own proprietary agents, how they identify a resource. So sometimes, and if you are somebody who is using OpenTelemetry, you may be onboarding with OpenTelemetry, and now if you can't get a full-fledged OpenTelemetry native experience because they have their proprietary ways of identify what is referred to as a host, and you can't get, in their host listing, you don't see the host listed as a host, even though there is a host, because they are not out of they're still doing the somehow to map the data from the OpenTelemetry, so they don't identify, they may not be able to identify what is a host, and not allow you to see the list of hosts that are coming from the OpenTelemetry.
So even if they are sending data with hosts in via OpenTelemetry, the system will not be able to, the authority backend will not be able to detect that, hey, these are the hosts. And that's primarily because They don't understand the OpenTelemetry format.
Correct. They have their proprietary ways of doing it, and even if they want to recognize it, they will have to have some sort of layer that transform that. And the problem with that transformation is that you're still not using the OpenTelemetry. Like the OpenTelemetry says that there's a host name, and now even if they translate it, the problem is that you as a user know that the host name is what I look for. Now, when you go to that platform, they build this transformation layer. You have to understand what are they mapping to use it. Like, let us say you want to filter out the traces by host name. If you are using the OpenTelemetry native backend, you know that you just use the host name filter. But when you go to any platform that's just somehow patching onto the OpenTelemetry, you have to understand what is that mapping attribute that they are mapping to. So it's very tough. There is a you have to keep in mind that okay, this is what I'm sending and this is what they're mapping. So that's a very
So all the filters which you actually apply will need to be still in the proprietary
Yes.
attribute format.
Yes, because those are their proprietary ways of recognizing it, and then for your data to work with whatever they are offering, they have to build the transformation layer, and then you have to remember what is it mapped to. That leaves a very broken experience, because you know that this is a semantic convention that I need to use, but that's not available there. You need to keep remembering the things that okay, so this is mapped to this, and then I need to filter or group by based on that.
Yeah. So I think this we discussed a lot while we are sort of designing this product, that how do we make OpenTelemetry a first class citizen rather than a second class citizen, which many legacy vendors make it to be, that you always need to, even if you're sending data in OpenTelemetry format, you have to filter the attributes in their format, which sort of sounds weird.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, which I think would be interesting to our users.
And the story doesn't end there. If if I have to say one most important thing about OpenTelemetry is that with the semantic conventions they are standardizing, and then with the semantic conventions they are also enabling the correlations. Like host name is a host name regardless of whether you are reporting a system performance metrics or whether you are reporting a traces from that host machine, or whether you are sending a logs from a host machine. By following the OpenTelemetry, so the correlation story with if you just stick to the OpenTelemetry semantic conventions are built native, it's just that if you want to see the logs of that host that is sending the data, it's just that you are going to use the host name, host name filter that gives you the logs of the traces coming out of that system. And let's just say if it's not an OpenTelemetry native backend, then again they would have to map not just the metrics, they would map the traces and logs as well. There again you need to understand, okay, so let's just say logs you have here is our OpenTelemetry data is sent. Does the backend that you are using, which is not OpenTelemetry native, how do they recognize that? Do they apply any further transformation on the let us take a log record example. What transformation are they applying to fit it into their existing platform versus how is OpenTelemetry sending it? You sometimes you may not even be able to recognize that what transformation is it going through. And let us say traces, for example. So traces, take one example. One of the vendors has where that span name they refer to as a resource name, and those resource name is not actually span name. They convert the scope name into the span name, which is not really useful, because you instrumented it, you had a reason to you instrumented it. There is a specific reason why span name is different from the scope name, right? So this introduces a lot of broken experience where you have to keep in mind that, and sometimes even if you know what is transformation, the experience, the capability is that you just don't want the transformation to happen. You just want, as OpenTelemetry provides, but because of the transformation, you lose the certain context. You don't want that to happen. So that's the best thing when with the SigNoz, that we just take what we get from the OpenTelemetry and we build everything following that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why we hear from some users that when you send OpenTelemetry data, the experience is not as intuitive in other authority backends, right? And that is primarily because of this point which you're talking about, where essentially because they are doing transformation to the OpenTelemetry data and using that to correlate, many times that experience breaks.
Right.
While the problem is with the backend provider, but many people believe that it's because of OpenTelemetry, right? And this is also another reason why many of such products want to push for their own agent, which makes sense. But I think the point which we are trying to emphasize here is that if you want an OpenTelemetry, the best experience with OpenTelemetry, you should go with a product which is designed for OpenTelemetry and not something which is trying to backpatch OpenTelemetry into their current system. Right. Shrikant, you also talked a bit about like the correlation, but why is correlation important in this context? Like if you are monitoring infrastructure metrics, you can see metrics, and many times metrics are the main things which we will look into. Though we paid a lot of attention to being able to see the logs with it, traces with it. Can you sort of share more on the thought process there?
Yeah. So when you start to notice, like when you it's really essential, because when like your applications have your application is using it, there is a functionality on its own, then it depends on the certain external resources. Take one of the such external things that where it relies on is that, okay, one of my external resource that I work with is that databases. Like another external resources that I work with is the underlying host machines. It's really important to have this correlation, because if you do not have the let's keep the scope to the underlying resources that the application is running on, not having the visibility into what's happening with the underlying infrastructure resource. Like, okay, so let us say your application suddenly started to see high error rate, or let us say your users started to experience high latency. Is when you start troubleshooting into, when you build up hypothesis, the first thing that comes to you is that, is it because of the underlying resource? Does it have a resource contention? Let us say if you are building a database application and there are 2 or 3 databases running on the host machine, it could be possible that there is no problem with your database system, but the disk is at its highest capacity. So it's the fix in such instance would be to increase the disk capability to do something around the resource, rather than trying to fix something in the application. So there is nothing, like it's not a specific anything to the user. So this is where being able to correlate with, okay, if I'm seeing a high error rate, does it correlate with anything that's happening with my underlying resource? This is the first thing that I want to see. And if I rule out, say that, okay, so there is no, it doesn't correlate with what's happening with my resource system performance metric, then you want to move on. Like, okay, I ruled out that this is the reason. Then you move on so that you reduce your scope, like so such that, okay, next what do I look into? But if you didn't have that like visibility, you wouldn't know. Like it would just be a guesswork.
Got it. Yeah, I think that is sort of very important, especially when you are debugging issues and trying to resolve, right? So essentially, it helps you reduce the MTTR, which I think is super critical when you are under a hair in fire problem, right? Cool. Yeah, I think this looks very interesting, and I hope users and community like it. Maybe you can share a bit on like what people can expect next on this. What does roadmap for infra monitoring look like?
Yeah, sure. Within the host metrics, right now you can see what's the all the signals that is and the metrics that's coming out of this. And this is not this is not even like, sometimes not enough for you to understand. Let us say here you see that the user time and then the system time is like for like combined is 50%, right? Is it because of one specific process? Is it because of certain processes that's running, or like everything has to be processed, right? Like, is it because of that? So you don't have that kind of granular information. The next thing that we want to enable for users is that what do these underlying processes that is contributing to the how much of this CPU resource usage percentage. So that's one area where we are looking into it. And let me quickly like take to the Kubernetes, because the other aspect is that, like, if you see here, here you can see request usage, limit usage. So here you can see there are certain overutilized, underutilized resources. One aspect, one would be to make it easier to like see which are the overutilized resources and underutilized resources. For example, let's say you go to nodes tab here, and here you can see that, hey, there is a CPU allocatable is like X. There are X CPUs available, but how much are you using it? Can I say that you can eliminate one of the nodes? Like here you can see that there are two nodes. Can I move this into this node and then get rid of the other node and then use it at the best utilization? And so this is another area where we can say that how do we get into the clear visibility? And
So do you mean like you will have like insights of such optimization which will be possible?
right. We already have the data. How do I surface things to you so that makes you to look in like help the right sizing your infrastructure resources. And the other thing is that here you can see that, hey, like, okay, so if it like here the utilization is high, and you want to get alerted on such cases. So another area is that how do we like automated alert provision for entire infrastructure, like pods, nodes, your deployments. Like, let us say, let's go to the deployments here. For instance, you have a available deployment, like the number of pods that you expect and the desired. For instance, if you say that, hey, if the number of available pods like desired is less than 50%, get me an alert. So we are going to the other area. The other thing that you can expect is that opinionated and then automated alert provision, so that you don't have to do it like by your hand. So it's out of box alerting for entire your infrastructure metrics.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially if we can surface insights upfront and help users create alerts very easily. That would be like a lot of use cases solved for customers, I think. Cool. Yeah, I think this seems very interesting, Amlan and Shikant. Thanks again for working on it. And I guess if anybody has any feedback on this feature or like anything which you want to see happen, which we have not talked about, feel free to reach out to us on our Slack community. It's SigNoz.io/Slack, or like just message us or email us, and we would love to get any feedback, how you are finding it, any areas of improvement, or like just if you encountered any bugs also. So yeah, thanks for joining in, and have a great